Welcome, welcome, folks. Another day, another chat about the tropics. This, of course, is Hurricane Hub Live, streaming on 13 News Now Plus. A special shout out to our viewers on YouTube, on the YouTube channel. Hello to you, and you can always put questions in the comments if you'd like anything answered on the shows to come in the coming days and the coming weeks about hurricane season in general or tropical weather. My name is Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis, and tonight on HHL, we've got a lot to talk about once again. Dexter will touch on, but that is no longer an issue. It's in the North Atlantic, and it's gone post-tropical. Now, yesterday, we talked about Colorado State University issuing its revision on the seasonal outlook. They do this. It's not uncommon. It's not rare. But today, NOAA issued their seasonal revision, and there are some minor changes I want to go through with you. There are two areas we're watching out in the Atlantic Basin. One that's a meh, not really going to be doing anything. The other one has been tagged as an investigative area, 96L, and this is most likely to become our next named storm, and that next name on the list would be the fifth name, which is Aaron. All right, here we are in terms of the tropical season. A third of the way through. We're beginning our ascension through August. Right now, we're at the beginning, obviously. First full week of August is now done. And we've seen a little bit of activity. We had a named storm so far, and that was Dexter. But again, it was just maxing out as a tropical storm and didn't impact anybody. Let's talk about the revision to the hurricane season as put out by NOAA today, okay? They've knocked off one named storm from their threshold of 13 to 18. It was 14 to 19 when they first put out the forecast at the end of May, a couple days before the hurricane season actually started. They knocked off one hurricane and also one major hurricane there, but still calling for an above average season. What's an average season? 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, 3 majors. Yesterday, we went through Colorado State's revision here, and they did knock off, actually, they'd maintained their forecast for 16 named storms, 8 hurricanes, 3 majors, and look where we are so far. 4 named storms, 4 low-grade tropical storms so far out in the Atlantic Basin. Now, there were some notes from the revision put out by NOAA. They're now giving a 50-50 chance of an above normal season. Now, that's a downgrade from 65% probabilities they put out at the beginning of the season for above normal activity, so more than 14 named storms. Now, they're still anticipating the warmer than average sea surface temperatures being a big player in storm development going further, right through the rest of the hurricane season, plus an active West African monsoon. We have talked in several videos of African easterly waves kind of being ejected off the coast of Africa. Those are the seedlings into the main development region, the fertile environment that typically develop into our long-tracked major hurricanes out of that part of the Atlantic Basin. And it really starts to get more active now that we're in August and certainly into September as we approach the peak of the season. And of course, the overall background state is ENSO neutral. El Nino Southern Oscillation. It's not La Nina. It's not El Nino this year. We're in between. And that means lower than normal wind shear, most likely, out in the Atlantic Basin as we go through the rest of the season. And that's pretty much what we've seen so far in the Atlantic. Wind shear hasn't been a huge detriment. Here's a look at the basin this hour. There's not a ton going on out there, but certainly in the main development region is a little more active than where it's been so far this season. We'll start off here a little bit closer to home, of course, the east coast of the United States. This little trough of low pressure here sitting off the coast of the Carolinas, pretty much right over the Gulf Stream, over some pretty warm ocean waters. In fact, this part of the Atlantic, Southwest Atlantic, is record warm. But that's not enough to promote the development of a storm system. That's one ingredient, but you need several others to line up, and it's looking less and less likely that they will. So the chances of development for this area that's not even tagged as an invest is now down to 20%. Just a day ago, was it yesterday or even the day before, was that 40%. So it's been slashed in half there, and you can see that it's moving away from the East Coast. There's Bermuda there, so likely passing in between, but again, not expected to develop. However, Invest 96L, likely going to be a different story. This is emerging out of the main development region. It is an African easterly wave that's starting to organize a little bit more. Now, development odds have actually decreased in the short term, next 48 hours. Right now, environmental conditions are marginally favorable, but it will eventually build into an environment that's much more conducive, meaning in the long range, within the next 7 days, 60% odds still. Now, that's maintained from yesterday, no change there. But we were at 30% yesterday in the short term, down to 10% now. Here's where it is. Here's the area that it may develop. So notice that this does take a west-northwest and eventually just a due north turn according to the most recent model runs. Can this change? Certainly. Have we seen this type of outlook presented before and it drastically changes? Certainly. Nothing is set in stone when you're talking about tropical weather. There's a lot of variables downrange that can change and alter the overall track. So we'll watch it, but this is the area right now most likely that we see this develop in the next named storm, which, as I mentioned, would be Aaron. Let's get a little bit of a deeper dive into Invest 96L right now. Infrared satellite imagery, we're using this for the temperature contour of the cloud tops. Colder cloud tops, stronger thunderstorm or convection activity. And that is indicated by some shades of red, and eventually if they get cold enough, there'd be shades of black and shades of white as well. Not really seeing that here. You can kind of see the overall broad circulation when we switch it up to just visible satellite imagery. Broad rotation here. Off to the north, when you see more scattered cumulus clouds, that's a little more stable environmental conditions there. There's also Saharan dust parked just to the north here. So that's dry mid-levels of the atmosphere. Not good if it was to get pulled into the system and it would choke it on out. But you can see broad rotation certainly getting going here, and as it builds farther to the west and eventually northwest, it'll move away from the stable environment, still has the warm ocean waters, and we should see things line up to get another named storm out of 96L. It's moving northwest at a decent clip, pretty average speed actually, at around 13 miles per hour with 30-mile-per-hour winds as indicated by satellite. Quick a summary here of exactly what an invest is, an investigative area, invest, tropical wave to monitor for development. 96 is just a recording number, 90 to 99. We're at 96 so far. 97 would be next. 95 was before. And the L is a basin indicator. L means Atlantic. E means it would be in the Eastern Pacific. All right, so now that it is tagged as an invest, we've now had 24 hours for models to lock onto it and give us some sort of outcome, some solution as what it thinks may happen. Now, each line that you're seeing here is a combination of the GFS, European, and Canadian model ensembles. So this is the same model, Canadian, European, or GFS, run several different times, in some cases dozens of times. And it gives us a different solution based on tweaking small variables at the onset. So we tweak something at the beginning, and then we see where it goes in the end. And notice that when you're close to the forecast period of the next 24, 48 hours, we've got, very close together, and then we start to see more of a model spread as we get farther and farther out in time, and the solutions are large. Large area could potentially go here. We've got a few that do take it on more of a west-northwest trajectory. Here, let's see if I can see, I think there's Bermuda right there. So we've got two camps here. A few model ensemble runs do take it west-northwest, possibly closer to the east coast of the U.S., although unlikely, but the majority of which do take it west-northwest and then turn it due north and keep it out in the middle of the Atlantic, even possibly east of Bermuda. Now, why does it signaling that? Well, for the majority of our hurricane season so far, we've had a big sprawling Bermuda high across the Atlantic basin. Well, recently, that's actually split into a double-barreled high almost. We've got one closer to the Azores, an Azores high, and then another kind of lobe of that high pressure parked a little bit farther to the west. In between that, we've got a trough or weakness in the ridging, and that's allowing it to kind of grasp the storm and lift it north and keep it out over the open Atlantic. That's if it all lines up and goes according to plan. That could certainly not be the case. It could slow down in forward speed, miss that kind of exit path to the north and continue more westerly. But, there's plenty of time to watch it. Most models do indicate a turn to the north. So that's what we'll hope for. Let's look at it here now in the longer range models. We'll go through the GFS and the European that we've been showing you for days now, using the relative vorticity. And basically what this is looking for is clockwise spin, indicative of an area of low pressure starting to form. So we're looking for areas like this, little lobes that'll develop, and you'll kind of see it more pronounced as it gets more developed here. So GFS model going out in time. This is 96L. There it is, taking that turn to the north, staying out in the open Atlantic, almost getting stuck and spinning in the central northern Atlantic. But then look at this. This could be 97L in the next week or so. Comes in right behind it. We see that kind of exit path to the north shut down. And this one takes more of a westerly track. Look at the date, though. We're 10 days out, 9 days out. A lot can change, but this is not a one-off run. This has kind of been consistently showing something in this time frame in this part of the world. And it's not only the GFS. Here's the European model, okay? Here's 96L. This doesn't really do a whole lot of developing with it. Notice it kind of fades away and gets absorbed by the upper stream there. But behind it, it shows numerous waves starting to get going here in the same time frame. 9 days out, we've got a possibility of a storm here, not too far off from where the GFS was, maybe a little bit quicker to the northwest there. GFS had it right here, but then European shows even another one and possibly even another one developing behind it. So activity certainly looking to enter a more active phase in the Atlantic basin based on both the GFS and European now being consistent in showing something out there to track. Exact location, exact timing, still way far out to tell that. And where it goes, still way far out to determine that. But the next names on the list are Aaron, Fernand, and Gabriel. So we'll see if we get those within the next couple weeks. You know, looking at climatology, of course, that's when we typically start to see more and more activity in August. And based on Climo, last 30 seasons, the first date on or around August the 22nd is when we typically see our 5th named storm. I bet we do it before that. Just the way we've been kind of playing things out the past couple of seasons, everything seems to be a little bit earlier. All right, over to the East Pac now. We've got 2 named storms at the same time. They've been very active in the East Pac so far this year. We'll start here farther to the west. This is a Henriette tropical storm right now, but look what's interesting here. There's Hawaii, passes by to the northeast, and is actually strengthening up to a hurricane. Category 1 hurricane now as we get out towards early next week around Monday with winds up to 80 miles per hour. That's interesting because usually as we're gaining latitude here, we start to encounter some colder ocean waters. But despite that, we may be strengthening as it's northeast of Hawaii. And then we've got Evo here that developed, I think, yesterday. It developed. That's also forecast to become a hurricane, although for a brief window of time because as we typically see or normally see, as they gain latitude in the East Pac, they encounter cooler ocean waters and they weaken. And that's exactly what's forecast here with Evo. Right now, higher end tropical storm with 60-mile-per-hour winds, so it's on its intensification run right now and should make it up to a Category 1 storm. And if we both get 2 hurricanes out of Henriette and Evo, that would put 6 hurricanes in the Eastern Pac so far this season. Been very, very active out there so far, and it looks to continue here, at least over the next week or so. All right, let's get to yesterday's trivia question. What was the strongest hurricane to make landfall in the U.S. based on central pressure? The answer to that is actually the Florida Keys 1935, also known as the Labor Day hurricane. It made landfall in the Florida Keys, and it had central pressure of 892 millibars. That correlates to wind speeds that got up to 185 miles per hour. Look at the track it took, moved over the Keys, moved along the west coast of Florida, made a secondary landfall, then curved pretty much along the I-95 corridor here, and really brought some damage to that part of the country, southeast. But again, 90 years ago, the Florida Keys 1935 Labor Day hurricane. All right, tonight's question. What's the record for the most hurricanes being active in the Atlantic at the same time concurrently? Is it 3, 4, 5, or 6? I'll have the answer for you tomorrow on HHL. In the meantime, we always want you to download the QR code or scan the QR code to download the 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It's got some cool information in there, like supplies you may need, emergency numbers you might need to have on hand as well, and a whole lot more. And we will be back here to wrap up the week tomorrow. We're here Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. for Hurricane Hub Live. We'll see you tomorrow.